Hello and welcome to Talk Spooky to Me, the Ghost Story Guys mail show. I'm Brennan Storr.
I'm Paul Bestall.
And this is our opportunity to hear from you, our audience. Paul Bestall, my friend, how you doing?
I'm very well, thank you, sir. How's yourself?
I'm good. I had a bit of a revelation relayed to me yesterday, which was kind of interesting. I had a friend was telling me that they had been reading up on leprechaun lore. And they said that, and I was not aware of this, they said that leprechauns are generally said to be, they're not small, obviously, they're normal sized. And they are said to be the children of people of the Fae and those who have been Fae-led. And they said that leprechauns can be, they like drinking and carousing, and they're nomadic, they don't like staying in one place too long. They said they can be very generous to strangers for no reason and completely just overwhelm them with generosity. They can also be extraordinarily spiteful for reasons that are as equally mysterious as the reasons they're being generous. And my friend turned to me and said, "So what's it like being a leprechaun?" And I'm a little annoyed by how accurate I feel that might be.
Which is quite funny, because I was reading in one of my mail shots I get from Google for weird stuff, there was a list of the 17 worst rated horror films on Letterboxd.
Okay.
And one of those was Leprechaun Origins, and it was just basically, whoever made this film should apologise to Ireland. Because it's taking everything that made Leprechaun fun and doesn't feature Warwick Davis, and it's not a leprechaun, it's a bog monster. This film shit. And that wasn't even the worst review there.
Really?
One of them said, "Some people say this came from the mind of a writer. I suggest it came out of my arse."
Okay. I mean, that's not exactly creative, but it's certainly to the point. I have seen almost all of the Leprechaun films. I think I stopped after, I think Leprechaun in the Hood might have been the last one I watched. I never saw Back to the Hood, but I have seen most of them up to that point. And I just, again, they're not great, but they have a charm. And Warwick Davis is, seems to be a gentleman and a scholar. But the idea of making one of those things, making it deadly serious about a bog monster without him, I don't understand the point.
Yes. I mean, and we've mentioned it before, because I think they didn't know, or they'd never spoken to anybody with an Irish accent, because most of the people in that film seem to be attempting a really bad Scottish one.
Oh, yeah. Ireland has actors. I've met some of them. You can just hire some of those fine folks.
Yes, absolutely. Very true. So, it was very chucklesome, that list, I have to say.
Well, we don't have any unfortunate Irish accents on this episode, but what we do have is a chat with some very cool people. We have a chat with Erica and Elizabeth, hosts of the Spirits Uncorked podcast. They are here to talk to us about their upcoming second season. Their first season was all about the hauntings of Lake Lanier. Elizabeth also hosts a ghost tour on the lake, a boat ghost tour, which was something pretty cool. I don't think I've ever heard of a boat ghost tour before. And so we're going to be chatting with them shortly. But just before we do that, I wanted to bring up one quick event that's coming up. It is a virtual event. I will be in the chat on Wednesday, March 12th. So it's going to be the Wednesday after this episode comes out. So a very narrow window for you guys to catch this. But friend of the show, Vampire Stepdad, is going to be having a listening party on Bandcamp for his new record, Night Shift 2 Canine Cop. And yeah, I will be there in the chat, hanging out with Vampire Stepdad and his fans. And folks, if you want to join, it would be awesome to hear you. The record, everything I've heard from it so far sounds like another killer VSD release. You have, of course, heard one of the songs on this show. You'll hear another one at the end of the episode. And I think it's going to be a great record. I'm sure it's going to be a good time. I will be in the chat. It's 8 p.m. Wednesday, March 12th. You can go to vampirestepdad.bandcamp.com to participate. There's no charge. Totally free. Just come hang out, listen to some free music, meet some cool people. And then at the end, if you want to pre-order the album, you can. But again, you don't have to. You can just come hang out. And again, I will be there as well. So again, 8 p.m. Wednesday, March 12th, vampirestepdad.bandcamp.com if you want to come hang out at the virtual album release party. All right. We have a great conversation waiting for you after the break. So let's just get to it. Welcome back. As promised, we have guests on this episode. Paul and I are hanging out with Elizabeth and Erica, hosts of Spirits Uncorked, a podcast which examines not only the mysteries of Lake Lanier, but the paranormal in general. I was on the show be part of their upcoming second season, and we've been very much looking forward to having them here. Elizabeth and Erica, welcome to the Ghost Story Guys.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Well, I say, been looking forward to it. We had a great time drinking on your show and talking about ghosts. Two of my favorite things, if I'm perfectly honest. Although I had to really watch it because sometimes if I have more than one, I think I was drinking tequila that night. If I have more than one, I start saying stuff that should not be recorded. So
you were being responsible.
I mean,
I was, which is a rare thing.
Sometimes I'll have more than one, and then we have to edit.
Yeah, you were.
Who has to edit, Erica?
I mean, Beth has to edit.
I remember, yeah, you on your season finale, you were drinking, was it box wine from a mug?
Oh yeah.
Which I respect.
We go hard, yeah.
They're not all winning choices, but we.
Yeah, you had champagne, she had box wine from a mug. I respect the hustle. I respect it.
Yeah, that's living.
Yeah. We're just keeping it real.
Yes, very much.
But yeah, so your second season is you're prepping your second season of your show, and again, we had a great conversation just talking about all things spooky, and of course, you also run a ghost tour on Lake Lanier. Do you not?
I do. It's called Lanier Ghost Tours, and we just we've been operating for one season, so we're coming back for our second season starting this summer. And we do ghost tours on Lake Lanier on a boat, and we will take our guests around to some of the more haunted spots on the lake and talk about the historical narrative where these stories have come from, and throw in the folklore. And it's a great day on a boat talking about ghosts. It's a lot of fun. I really enjoy it.
No doubt. So how did you come to that? How did you both of you actually, I'm curious to know how you both sort of came to your interest in the paranormal. And then specifically Lake Lanier. Yeah,
I think I've always had somewhat of an interest in it. And then once I moved to this area, Lake Lanier is just not far outside of Atlanta, Georgia. But once I moved to this area and got to know Lake Lanier better, my husband actually works at Lake Lanier. He's a park ranger. And cool. So we really, I just stumbled into this giant mystery in my backyard here. And that's where I kind of got the idea for a podcast first, and I thought the perfect person to start the podcast with me would be my little sister Erica, because she's weird and creepy, and and she's weirder and creepier than me, but so she would be the one to help me get into the mystery for sure. And then it sort of evolved into like, why aren't there any ghost tours on Lake Lanier? I couldn't believe that there were none that I could find. Yeah. And so I thought, well, let's just start this and see where it goes. And so I had a little bit of help, found some good people to help me. And my husband, who is a park ranger there, he drives the boat. He drives all the tours. So
cool.
Yeah. So it's been a fun adventure. It's been an interesting adventure. And it's been fun.
And you can drink wine on the boat, so it just goes hand in hand.
Yes.
Can I buy shots for the captain? I think that's pretty cool. No. Boats and alcohol, that's a totally normal thing to combine.
No.
We're not in Greece.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. And Erica, so where does your interest in the paranormal come from?
I've always been really creepy and weird. When I was little, I think I had just a lot of experiences, and I would write about it, and I knew like I have to remember this and I have to always believe myself. And so I've kept a diary like ever since I was really little, and I would write all these things down, and just to remind myself, because in my mind, you grow up and then you stop believing this stuff because nobody ever believed me. So I always kept track of it, and I love scary movies. And so, I mean, I think like with Beth, she's really one of the only people I know who's willing to watch the really creepy, scary, demented movies, but she's just terrified. So we have to be together and then we have to watch something funny afterwards. But a lot of my friends won't even watch scary movies. So I think that's kind of why we bonded on it. Yeah.
But Lake Lanier, what was the thing that first turned you on to? Obviously, it was now in your backyard, but was there like a particular way that the ghost stories came to you?
I think that it started, we spent a weekend, our whole family, extended family, we spent a weekend, it was Thanksgiving weekend, out on a cabin at the lake. And we're talking about, the environment that we were in. And that was really when I first learned the origins of the lake. It's a man-made lake. And they built a dam, and they dammed all of these areas. And one of them was Oscarville, which is an infamous town that was flooded, and it was an up-and-coming Black community in the area. And so that was the first story that was like, what? I had never heard that. I've lived here for like 8 years at that point, and I had never heard that. And so that was the first thing that I was like, I had to Google and like figure out what is this? And that's probably what started it. And then you figure out, what happened there and that whole history, and it just leads to all of these other things. And it's just like everything that is under that water, it's just one thing after another after another. It's like these stories never end.
And I mean, even people who don't know those stories will report having like eerie feelings or having seen something that matches one of the stories, and they don't even realize it. So there's a lot of
interesting.
So without even knowing the history, people are reporting things. So that just makes it so cool and more realistic and creepier.
Yeah.
Sure, yeah.
It gives a validity to these stories that you hear. Yeah.
That's it. So I'm kind of curious. I mean, for our audience members who aren't familiar with the Lake Lanier legends, what are some of the stories experienced there?
Well, the main one actually is this. She's called the Lady of the Lake. She's a woman in a blue dress. And that is from the 1950s when these two best friends were in a car. They went out dancing, and then they stopped at a gas station afterwards, and they were never seen again. It turns out their car had ran off of a bridge, and they had both perished. Their bodies were not found right away. But when they were found, one was found about 18 months later, and that would be the woman in the blue dress. Her real name is Delia Mae Parker. And the other woman, Susie Roberts, she was found decades later. But the woman in blue is reportedly seen. That's probably the most commonly reported apparition on the lake. And she's seen wandering, and she has no hands. And she was found, her remains were found, and she did not have hands.
Oh, my God.
Mm-hmm. And she was wearing a blue dress that night, and she's wearing a blue dress when people see her.
Oh, fascinating. And so now, do people see her on the water, or is it around the lake?
Around on the water, near the bridge where she died. Mm-hmm. Just in that area, and it's many reports. And so it's really fascinating. We had a really interesting guest on one of our episodes of Spirits Uncorked. Her name was Elise, and she had an amazing story. She saw the woman in blue who actually saved her life when she was a child. And she had never even heard this story before, about these women who died. But she just grew up remembering that a woman in blue saved her life. And then it wasn't until she was an adult where people were like, oh, did you know that there's a woman who died there and she was wearing a blue dress? And that was the first time she'd ever heard, that a woman in blue is spotted there. And then she started to put together, oh, that's what saved my life when I was 6 years old. Yeah. Or 4 years old. I can't remember now. But yeah, so really, that's a good episode to listen to. You should listen to it.
I mean, you should listen to the whole show, folks.
Yeah.
It's really good stuff.
But that was like one thing after another. It was just kind of spine chilling.
Yeah, that one was probably one of my favorite episodes too. And I think in that episode, we were also talking about, from her memory, what she thought this lady looked like. And then just right then and there, Beth was like, let's just pull up a picture and see. And she didn't know. She didn't know. And she was spot on. So
described her with having long blonde hair and light eyes. And then we looked up a picture of her, and that's sure enough, she had blonde hair and light eyes. And then I asked her, what area was this? And she told me the area. And I was like, do you know that's like right by the bridge where this woman died? She had no idea. So it was just like one thing after another, that just made this like, wow. Yeah. And there were witnesses too. And the witnesses, when they saw what happened to her when she was a little girl, she was on a runaway jet ski. the jet ski crashed into an embankment and it threw her off the jet ski. She hit a tree and witnesses,
oh my God.
yeah, she hit a tree and witnesses say she hit the tree and she went backwards in the air and then into the water. And she said that a woman in blue told her right before she hit the tree, this is going to hurt, but you're going to be okay. And then she hit the tree, and then witnesses say she went backwards and into the water. And then she was pulled out of the water by, of all things, one of the witnesses who pulled her out of the water had not been able to walk in
That's
in
right.
years.
Yeah.
And remember, and he jumped up from, I don't know if he was in a wheelchair or something, but he jumped up and he was able to run down to the water and pull this little baby. Yeah.
Holy man.
Out of the water.
Was how old did she say she was? 4 or 5?
I can't remember. She was 4 or 6, but yeah, she was real little. I want to say 4. I think she was 4 when this happened.
It's she got yanked back from the tree, and instead of hitting rocks on the bank, she went back into the water.
Mm-hmm. And she told her mom, when she was little, that she described all this to her mother, and her mom was like, okay, it was an angel, or what.
Yeah.
But she always held on to this her whole life. She had this really clear picture, and just her telling it to her mom when she was 4 years old, and her mom validating the story all of these years. And she has a scar on her forehead.
I'm shocked that's all she has.
So exactly. She's reminded of this all the time with the scar on her forehead, but the doctors they were shocked that she hit the tree with that amount of force and she didn't have a concussion. She didn't have any, fracture or anything. So really, really fascinating story. But that's probably my favorite story, and just full of, facts and really common themes that you hear about the woman in blue. The other thing too is this woman, Delia Mae Parker. She was a young mother herself. She had a infant daughter when she died, and so then we think, oh, there's some kind of maternal instinct that she had to protect this little girl out on the lake, because people don't really associate the woman in blue with fear, or bad feelings. It's always, in her case, she felt like she was being protected. She wasn't afraid. And that's kind of common.
That's really cool. And Paul and I have talked about that before, about how we like to hear these stories where, a ghost story doesn't have to be scary.
Yes.
They're not necessarily, because so much in modern TV is, it's demonic or it's whatever, and that's just not always the case, but not usually the case, that goes so far as to say.
Right. I agree. And actually, I'm glad you said that, because, this is not what we're talking about, but when I was reading your book about Revelstoke, wait, what is it called? What's the name of the town?
Yeah, Revelstoke.
Yeah. And you had a story in there about the dog, and it was it's kind of nice. They don't all have to be horrible.
Yeah.
Kind of a nice story there.
Well, we were talking about one I stumbled across the other week, which was a weird disappearance near where Brennan's from. And a kid disappeared in the woods and nobody knew where he got, near a lake, strangely enough. And then he turned up 3 days later on the opposite side of the lake. And when they asked him how he got there, he said a teenager in a baseball cap had helped him out of the woods and told him he'd be found if he went over there and walked down, because that's where the people were looking for him.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it carried him too, I think, for a large stretch. That he picked him up and carried him. And
nobody knows. There was hundreds of people looking for this kid. Nobody saw any teenagers in the woods.
Interesting.
It's because of these things, just they don't make sense, right? But we have to accept that they happened. With the girl hitting her head and getting that sweet Harry Potter-esque scar. Obviously people saw that happen.
Yeah, because it happened at a campground, and so there were several witnesses around, which just, makes it all the more mind-boggling. Yeah.
Have there also been stories connected to the submerged towns? Because and that's a little bit of a sticking point for some folks, isn't it? That the towns have been sunken.
It is. Well, the fact is that yes, the Buford Dam was constructed, and it's an enormous lake. It covers 5 counties. And so, yes, one of the regions that was flooded was a former town called Oscarville. Now, Oscarville, as they knew it, it was an up-and-coming Black community. And in 1912, there were some racially charged events. And what happened was a white woman was found murdered, and 3 black men were hung for the crime, executed for the crime. And then after that, it was kind of like the white residents chased the black residents out of the area. That happened in 1912. So by the time this Lake Lanier was built, it was already the 50s. But that history is still there, in that geographic location, that those horrible events that happened in 1912, that is where they happened. In the 1950s is when that area was flooded. So when it was flooded, it was mostly, at that time, it was like white rural farmers. Their land was flooded by then. But there was a lot of cemeteries that the U.S. government had to relocate, and not all of them could have been relocated, right. Especially if you're talking about a place that was, they probably had black cemeteries. I doubt that the federal government took the time to locate those and remove them. So, not everybody's comfortable talking about that, but it is something that happened in that area, and you can't separate these events. I mean, if you're talking about Lake Lanier and it being haunted, there's a lot of emotionally charged events that happen in that location, and Oscarville is one of them. So we do talk about that on the tour, and not everybody's comfortable with it. It can be a really controversial topic, but you can't deny what happened. I mean, history's history.
Yeah, the town is still there. There's really tall trees. There's areas of the lake where I think it's dangerous because of the tall trees, because of poles and things. Like, they didn't tear any of it down.
There's still bridges underneath. There's still structures. Wow. There's bridges. There's structures. Now, these aren't all just from Oscarville. These are from, there's several, communities that were flooded. But there's bridges, there's complete structures, there's like chicken coops and roads and railroad tracks. There's all of that is still underneath the water. So it does make it a very dangerous lake. They also left a lot of fully grown trees. So there's like underwater forests. So boats can get stuck in these. If you're swimming, swimmers can get stuck. It makes rescue efforts really difficult if you're not familiar with the lake and where these dangerous spots are. So it is a dangerous lake if you don't know what you're doing. So be careful when you're out there, wear your life jacket. It's beautiful, but you have to be smart too.
Yeah. I was always amazed. Now I know how much of its history over the years, Elizabeth and Erica, that they had the rowing competition for the 96 Olympics on Lake Lanier. You would think that is the last place to have an Olympic competition with all this stuff underneath.
Yeah. Well, that'd be something interesting to look into, because I know that they did that, but I don't know what area of the lake they did that. There are, I'm sure they made sure that it was perfectly safe in that part, but because there's the Chattahoochee River there too. Yeah. So some of it's river, some of it's man-made lakes, and there's channels and there's coves, and so, but it's just an enormous area, and so it's one of the reasons why I was so glad that my husband was driving the boat tours, because he knows exactly what's going on. So I felt totally comfortable, and safe. And so I was comfortable with my guests being out there too with him. So, but yeah, you have to know what you're doing.
Park rangers are a different breed. I've learned this.
Right.
So I'm actually just about halfway through the book Ranger Confidential. And I respect the hell out of those fine folks. I could not do that job. It sounds very, very challenging.
Yeah.
Especially keeping Bigfoot a secret as well.
And that's, that's been spotted around these parts too, North Georgia. So
interesting. Mm-hmm. Is it true that Lanier has more fatalities annually than most lakes?
Proportionally, for the size and everything, yes. Okay. There's about 13 deaths every year. But then you also have to keep in mind there's about 8 million visitors to Lake Lanier every year too.
Right, of course. That's incredible. That's an enormous amount of people.
It is. It's huge, and it's very busy. It's very busy in the summer. So it does, especially when you're local and you hear about a drowning at Lake Lanier, it's very easy for people around here to be like, oh, another drowning at Lake Lanier. But then you also have to think about, well, there's 8 million people who come here every year.
That's fair.
And not everyone is very smart wearing a life jacket. And a lot of local people do get frustrated with the haunted trope. They don't like that. They think it's kind of ruining the lake's reputation.
Oh, interesting.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Oh, fascinating.
So
okay.
there's a lot of people who are not happy with the fact that I give ghost tours because they think it's affecting, they're kind of, they think it's harming the lake's reputation. But I'm like, the reputation's there.
I was going to say, Georgia, the state motto. Let's go back to the past. I'm sorry, guys. Clock doesn't work that way.
I find that hard to believe because I think if you asked most people outside of the United States to name a lake in America, they'd really struggle to name one other than Lake Lanier. So it's become world famous because of its history.
That's
really interesting point of view. Yeah.
Well, we had no idea how controversial it was or how the locals felt about it until she started working on this. And it became it made it really difficult for her and for the whole situation. And I just
thought, this is a good idea. I love going on ghost tours.
Yeah.
I thought, this would be fun. We'll do a ghost tour in Lake Lanier. I thought it was going to be fun. I guess I was being super naive because, yes, a lot of people were not happy about it. But, the guests who have come on the tour, a lot of them are from out of town. Most of them are from out of town. We've had a few locals, but a lot of them are from out of town, and they're just intrigued by this lake. And so I think I'm going to keep doing this tour for them because they're enjoying it, they're curious, and we're doing it in a fun way, in a safe way. We don't do them at night. We don't do them in the dark.
Right, that seems wise.
Right. So it's all about safety first, and I put as much just history and information. It's kind of, we actually had a homeschool group come on one tour because it's so historical, and that you learn about the dates that things happened and the events. And it's a little bit of everything for everyone.
I mean, there's Native American burial grounds. The Trail of Tears started there. It has a lot of historical facts, and it's not, happy history, but I mean, you need to remember history. And we're talking about the hauntings, the things that people have reported, but we're also doing it in a respectful way. Like, these are real people, and these real sad events really did happen. So I think that the way she does the tour, it's very respectful, and you get to see the beauty of the lake and kind of see how things have changed. So
there is I feel like Paul and I have talked about this, how, say 10 years ago when I started researching Strange, actually a little more than 10 years now, about 12, 13 years ago, paranormal stuff was not as accepted, right? It was a little more, when I was interviewing people, they were a little more weird about, you knock on someone's door and say, hey, have you ever seen a headless person drift across your living room? You're putting yourself in a situation. But then it kind of, over the years, has gotten a little more normalized. But I feel like maybe in the last couple of years, there's a bit more of a push back, and part of it may just be the internet because, I with the nature of my job, I spend too much time there. But, you'll see someone say, hey, where's a good ghost tour? Does anyone know a good ghost story?
Yeah.
And you can guarantee the answers, a good portion of the answers will be, well, no, because they're not real. Mm-hmm. And it's just this weird edgelord, shitlord kind of rationality at all costs kind of attitude. And I don't know, it's weird and kind of connects to the history. They're like, well, no, we're not going to talk about this because this somehow defiles the history.
Right.
Well,
does it?
They're very intertwined.
I think with online, there's a lot of fake stories, so people have a harder time believing things. And with AI, now, I think right now most people can spot what is AI, but as it's getting better, people kind of start to lose faith in whatever they're hearing online. And so it's like, well, what is true and what is not true? Did you really say this, or are you just saying it for clout, to get attention, to get followers, to get likes? So I think that's a big part of it with online. It's a lot more convincing when it's in person and you're doing a tour or a group or things like that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I can't tell you the number of TikToks people will send us and they'll say, well, look, they caught a ghost. I'm like, yeah, I guarantee you they didn't.
Yeah.
I respect the enthusiasm. I appreciate you listening, but nope, no, they didn't.
Right.
Somebody sent me one. Yes, when was it? Tuesday, and it was literally down a kitchen, so you couldn't see the full walls, and things just kept flying off from either side. And I just thought, give me the full scan here, because this is quite obviously somebody's pulling or pushing something like with a stick. And there was like tea towels and things just flying off the sides randomly. And I just thought, oh, God.
Well, what I love is those videos where we all have smartphones that have really great like camera quality, okay? But then you see these ghost videos or alien videos, and it's like they recorded it on a videotape thing like from the 90s, and it's like you had one job and you messed it up and you just expect us to believe it. Yeah, they can't use higher quality cameras for those things.
No. Everyone knows Bigfoot himself is blurry. That's why you never see him. Yeah.
That's why we always, it's like a running joke. Why have you filmed this on a potato?
Right.
Yeah. There's a really great movie that was shot in Georgia somewhere. It's called 15 Things You Didn't Know About Bigfoot, or sometimes it's called The Vice Guide to Bigfoot, and it's very funny. It's a horror comedy, but one of the scenes it involves this host who thinks he's better than he is, going to a Bigfoot festival in Georgia and having to meet a bunch of people in that scene, and one of them is a Bigfoot hunter called the Cryptid Commander, and he has a photo, like his famous Bigfoot photo, and he's like right there, and the host is just squinting and trying to get as close as he cannot see he's like, no, you can see the two eyes just there, and that's how I feel looking at most of these TikToks. Yeah. It's like, nope, it's like one of those magic eye puzzles. I'm trying to cross my eyes and step back. No, guys, no.
There's one guy, I can't remember like exactly what his name is, like Pete, the canine handler. He lives out in the middle of nowhere. I don't know, maybe Minnesota or something. And he has a freezer with Bigfoot's foot in it. But every time he opens it, it's like all a teaser. You can see a fluff of hair, but he never actually shows it. And his whole page is based on that. And he gets a ton of views and a ton of comments. And I mean, he's making money off of it. So I guess, whatever works.
So what we're saying here, Elizabeth, is you got to get one of us in a scuba outfit. We'll go under the lake, maybe Paul in a Bigfoot costume, because he's a little bit taller than I am, and just boom.
No, the joke is when we first started this, and I was getting the tour, the route for the tour, because there were certain places that we wanted to cover, but again, it's a big lake, so we're trying to like find the stops that we can do in a certain amount of time. But one of them is where the lady of the lake died. And so the joke is like, we're going to dress my son up in a blue dress. He's 10 years old at the time. We're going to put my 10-year-old in a blue dress and put him over there in the trees where he could just like flap his hands around or something in a blue scarf.
It's brilliant. I'm telling you, it's a viral moment right there. Get that up on the TikTok. We got ourselves a phenomenon.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. He would do it too. He would, I don't know. He might give it away. He'd do too much.
Doing interpretive dance.
He probably would.
He could be very dramatic.
I respect this.
Yeah. Well, you guys have got your own Bigfoot museum in Georgia as well, haven't you?
We do.
I've
never been to it, but there's probably several because the North Georgia woods, I would imagine there's probably a couple places that you could.
The Appalachian Mountains start there, and that's where apparently all the creepy stuff is. I don't know what exactly. I just know you're not supposed to whistle or keep your windows open at night.
Nope. Don't whistle there. That's a surefire way. Yes, there's been some very one guy. I think one guy said one of them chased him on the Appalachian Trail in Georgia because of his dog, and him and his dog basically ran for their lives about 5 miles.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm so skeptical, but like I would go and just whistle, and then I'll die. It's fine.
But I'll die satisfied.
At least you'll know the answer.
I'll know the truth.
My last words will be, aha.
Right?
Yeah, I recommend watching Exist before you try that, Eric.
Oh, okay.
Oh yeah, that's a movie.
Yes, that's a good guide to what not to do if you're going looking for Bigfoot.
I think all these Bigfoot stories explain why Georgia also has a chain of places called Therapy Land. All right, so we're going to pause here for a quick ad break, and we'll be right back.
What I find fascinating, ladies, is I think it was last year there was a series on Hulu called Files of the Unexplained.
Yes.
Yes.
And obviously it did an episode on Lake Lanier.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And I was quite infuriated by the official that was on it, who categorically said, there are no graves, there's nothing in there, it's all nonsense. Because the year before I'd seen the episode of Expedition X, where they'd gone swimming in the lake and found the graves.
Right.
So who's telling the truth?
No pressure. We're sending this to Josh, whatever his name is, if you get it wrong.
Okay. So the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers manages the lake. And so that was the official that you saw. That is also the department that my husband works in.
Right. What do you think, Erica?
So what I can say is, is that, for one thing, the Native American burial site, a lot of the officials maybe don't want these specific areas to be publicized because people will vandalize them if they know where they are. So that's one thing. So we don't make that widely known. People can be horrible, and they will vandalize these places if they know exactly where they are. So that's one thing that maybe this official was trying to protect. But no, there are absolutely 100% structures down there. There are graves down there. There just are. And I have underwater, I have sonar scans that I've gotten. I've done a ton of research on this, and we go over, there's this one brick, it's just clear as day, the underwater sonar scan, and it's a brick building, and it just looks like it's waiting for somebody to just walk back into it and like turn the lights on. But yeah, it's down there. It absolutely is.
They could have tried their best, but they did not move the Native American burial mounds that are there.
No, they didn't. Mm-mm.
And for the other graves, they may have picked the most well-known ones, but I don't believe at all that they moved everything.
I have a really very well researched book. I'm sitting right here on my desk. It's called Lake Lanier, a storybook site, and it's by Robert David Coughlin. It's huge, and he has documented the construction of the lake, all of the cemeteries that were relocated, all of the structures that were relocated. It's a really fascinating and comprehensive book. But the reason why, there's just, back in those days, people had family cemeteries, they're not going to be on public record as being a cemetery. So those didn't get moved. You know what I mean?
Right, of course.
Things like that. And then, like I was saying before, they had, no doubt they had segregated cemeteries. So
Yes.
there's nothing in this research that says, here's a black cemetery that the U.S. government relocated. Well, they didn't relocate them, so they're still there. It's just kind of intuitive. So there's definitely some things down there.
Even if, Elizabeth, even if it wasn't what was happened prior to the flood, you would still imagine that Oscarville, there would still be their cemeteries, because I doubt they would have allowed them to come back to take their dead.
Right. Yeah. And Eric and I talk about that in one of our episodes of Spirits Uncorked. We're like, okay, so the original residents of Oscarville in 1912 who were chased out after the racial violence, do you think that the government notified them in 1950, hey, we're going to flood this area, you might want to come get your loved one and move them or something. No, they didn't do
Right.
that.
Beth, what was that cemetery that we found that was covered in spiders?
Oh God.
It was a nightmare.
Boo.
I can't remember the name of it. If you want to give me a second to look it up, you can talk about it, Erica. I'll look it up real quick.
Well, it was one that was relocated, right? Or it was one of the originals. And she had particularly been driving all over the place looking for it. And
That one had not been relocated. That had always been there, and it was never flooded.
was it called originally Oscarville Cemetery? Is that why?
It was originally called Mount Zion Historical Cemetery.
Oh, okay.
And it's still called that. And we found a gravestone of somebody who was, 108
Yeah.
when they died. And
these were old gravestones.
And there's Confederate soldiers who were buried there. And yeah.
It was definitely really cool to walk through, but also mildly terrifying.
It was really run down. A lot of them, there were some like above ground like crypts, and they were cracked, like really in just really poor condition. There was a lot of spiders, which Erica had a big problem with. So
I'm with you, Erica.
You're just walking, and then you look up and you realize you're under these gigantic. I can't look. I will take a shadow person over a giant spider. Okay. I'm sorry. But I mean, when I looked up and I realized we were underneath these gigantic spiders, huge. Georgia has problems.
And you know what, Erica, you remember what day that was? That was on Halloween.
Oh, that's right.
We were there on October 31st because we were about to do my Halloween ghost tour.
Yeah. Yeah, we just stumbled upon it. It's completely overran. And I just had almost a complete meltdown. I couldn't. I was like, I can't get out. I can't move.
I'd like to remind you that Erica has been in the military for the last 16 years. Several deployments.
There's armed threat, and then there's
Protecting our
spiders.
country, everybody.
I always said if I come across a camel spider, I'll probably go home in cuffs because I'm gonna shoot it. Sorry.
I will defend you. I will call me.
Thank you.
I will put on my lawyering suit. I will defend you because zero stars.
No way.
Boo. Spiders. Christ. No, absolutely. I same thing. As you know, I've seen shadow people. I would rather that 100 times than a giant goddamn spider.
Yep.
Absolutely not.
Spider.
But that was a really fun find, you know. Maybe in the winter when they're all dead or something, I'd go back.
No, because they're there. They're just waiting.
I know.
You let down your guard. That's how they get you.
What those
Definitely.
cracks in the crypts are for?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the crypts are full of spiders.
Yeah,
Spider winter bed.
I mean, there was trees growing through some of these stone,
That's cool.
stone crypts. I mean, I put it on our social media page because it was just a really eerie and interesting place,
Mm-hmm. And it's not well marked at all. You would just drive right past it and never even know.
Yeah. And I had driven right past it several times. And then, I don't know, something suddenly clicked. I'm like, what does that sign say?
I love a good cemetery walk, even at night, but not if everything is coated in spiders like that.
No, if you're walking into the spider apocalypse, absolutely not.
Right.
No, again, the dead are one thing, but joining them is quite another.
It's just so, what's funny is Erica has always been worse about spiders than me, but I also used to be really bad. I think living in the South has desensitized me to to spiders and even cockroaches. I don't freak out like I used to. I used to just freak myself out so bad, and now I can handle it for some reason. I guess living here just desensitizes you to these creepy crawling giant things.
And I will stay in the North.
I'm with you, Erica. I'm with you.
I do have spider kill spray. I'll send you a link.
Cool. Thank you.
The next time you go down in the South.
Yeah, it's a flame. It's a hairspray and a lighter. That's what it is. I about 11 years ago, a friend and I went down to Point Pleasant, West Virginia, and we saw the Mothman statue, of course. And then,
Oh, that's awesome.
yeah, and we got there late, so we had dinner at McDonald's, which was the only thing that was open. Saw the Mothman statue, which of course is lit up like daylight with spotlights gleaming off his well sculpted metal behind. And then we went to go find because there's a monument for the Point Pleasant or the Silver Bridge disaster.
Yeah.
So we saw Mothman again, center of town, lit up like Vegas. We found the bridge monument down the riverbank in the dark between two bushes that were infested with spiders. And as soon as we kind of realized, I had the light on my flashlight, on my flashlight on my phone. As soon as we realized that those were webs covering both those bushes, I don't think I've ever moved so fast.
Right. Yeah, I fully understand. Actually, our brother just took his family recently to the Mothman statue, and I didn't know that they had all of that, but I love the movie.
It's a good movie.
You know what I think is so interesting now that you bring up the Mothman and that, you know, how it's become a tourist attraction. I think that's just from a bit like business perspective. I think that's so smart because you can believe in it. You don't have to believe in it, but like you will go see the statue.
That's
and
it.
So I kind of wish that, you know, some of the people here would kind of reframe Lake Lanier in that way. And like, I know that you don't want to talk about uncomfortable parts of history or whatever, but you could also just own it. And, you know, it could be good for your local economy if you kind of reclaim this story and educate people about it. You know, you don't have to believe in ghosts. You don't have to, you know, whatever. You don't have to be defensive about your ancestors or my ancestors or any, you know, it can just be something that happened. You can kind of reclaim it and, you know, it could be good for the local economy. So I think instead of fighting it, I think we should embrace it.
Well, a lot of people, because I've been very fortunate. I've interviewed two of the guys that work at the Mothman Museum and are essentially the two people who are classed as the experts when it comes to Mothman. It's essentially Save Point Pleasant, really.
Yes.
Because it's become world famous. I mean, the festival they do now, they get 25,000 people over 3 days.
Yes.
And the vast majority are not from West Virginia.
Yeah, exactly.
People come from Japan, the UK, Europe, South Africa, travel from all around the world because they want to come for the Mothman Festival.
Yes. That's such a good point. That's exactly what I mean. Like, I think people could open their mind and envision something different. You know, it doesn't have to be this horrible thing that, you know, is hanging over our heads. We could, you know.
Yeah. Well, I know there's a similar place in a little town called Van Meter in Iowa. And they had a strange incident there in turn of the 20th century. I'm not sure if it was 1908, where a giant lizard was seen over a week in the town, terrifying the locals. And there was a big showdown at the end, and it just disappeared. Van Meter has essentially just shrunk until about 10 years ago when they started looking into this. And then a couple of guys did a book on it. They've now got a festival, which last year brought in £1 million.
Wow.
Wow. To a town that's got a population of like 500.
Right.
And people all around the world know where Van Meter is.
It makes so much sense to me because, like, you know, even on our tours, we have it's a small boat. We have 10 or 12 guests at a time. And we had this group come from Texas, and they were so much fun. But, you know, if you're coming from out of town, they're eating at the local restaurants and they're staying at local Airbnbs, and they're, you know, it can be such a good thing for the local economy if you can embrace it.
There's a place in Nebraska, another small town like between Lincoln and Omaha, and I guess this house is like really famously haunted, and they have a doll that's kind of like Annabelle. It moves on its own, and they have her in a glass case. I can't remember.
They have a camera.
They have there's a live stream on it all the time. I'm trying to look to see if I can find it. I follow them on Facebook, but yeah, I'd have to look them up. But there are people that go there. I went once, and there's people that go every weekend because I don't know. They don't have busy lives, I guess. And they're just so interested in watching her move. No, these are like regulars. Like, they are coming every weekend. Yeah. These people know her. They know all this staff. And Kylie Jenner like sponsors this. Yeah, I know. So in the gift shop, there's like Kylie lip kits.
It's the Museum of Shadows. Is that
Yes!
what it is, Erica?
Yes. Thank you.
Does she know where Nebraska is?
That's where we're from.
Yeah.
I know. But I mean, Kylie Jenner. Is Kylie Jenner aware of the geographical location of Nebraska?
I don't know if she still does, but when I went, she was. And they were like, we're going to expand, we're going to do all of this, but it's just like one main street. It looks like a ghost town. But during the day, they have like bars and stuff and Airbnbs. And it's just its own little thing out in the middle of nowhere. It's so random.
I'll be damned.
Yeah, it's so interesting what you can find.
Mm-hmm.
One more ad break. Don't forget, if you don't want to have to listen to the ads, and why would you? Ads suck. Head to patreon.com/ghoststoryguys or sign up to become a friend of the cabin on Apple Podcasts or YouTube.
Yeah, America's full of strange little wonders like that all over the place. Like that clown hotel.
In Tonopah.
That is just, and it's built next to a graveyard, for God's sake.
Oh, wow.
One of my great regrets in life is I once passed through Tonopah and I didn't know it was there, so I didn't get to see it. Yeah. And I mean, it's... Oh, Christ, I hope life never takes me back to that town. I don't know. I assume, because like I only drove that side of Nevada once.
Yeah.
I was driving down to Vegas and I went down from like Winnemucca down the western side of the state. That is not an inspiring drive.
Yeah, that's fair.
Well, I hope this doll isn't chatting shit about Robert down in Florida, because we could have a doll war going on.
Oh, right. Yeah, of course, Robert, the haunted doll. Yeah, a lot of haunted dolls. There's a big economy in haunted dolls these days.
Yeah. Not many get marijuana sent through the post, though, do they?
I forgot that people send Robert joints. What? Isn't that still a federal crime in the United States, sending marijuana through the mail?
I'm not sure. Is it legalized?
No,
is it legal in Florida?
I don't know if it's legal in Florida.
Robert's retired to Florida, so I don't know.
It's definitely legal where I live.
Oh, cool. That's cool. Yeah, you're here too.
Yeah. Well, I think also in Connecticut, there was like the people who worked in the Conjuring house. They've got their doll, Annabelle. And it used to be like on display, their basement. What were their names? I can't remember. But the couple that worked for like Amityville Horror, The Conjuring, Annabelle, that couple, their nephew now owns their...
the Warrens.
Yes,
the Warrens. Oh, yeah.
So they had like a basement with all the haunted things. Yeah. And once they passed away, the nephew, he would do live streams down there and like spirit boxes and stuff like that. And I'm like, I feel like that is opposite of what you should be doing with these things that are apparently demonic, but whatever. I would watch them.
Fortunately, that's all lies. So he's totally safe.
Anybody think it was all made up?
No. Sex pest Ed Warren making stuff up, Paul? I don't believe it.
I know. Self-proclaimed demonologists.
Only after The Exorcist, though. They were ghost hunters before The Exorcist.
Oh, right. I forgot about that.
I don't. I always like to point that out. You can see the change.
Uh-huh.
Didn't this whole thing start with him like drawing ghosts coming out of houses? Like he sketched things. Yeah.
He was a cartoon guy.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. And it turned into a human cartoon.
Wow. I didn't know that.
Audience, this is our opinion, not our guests. As you know, our audience is well familiar with our opinion on the Warrens, but opinion is not shared by our guests.
Oh, well, that's fine.
We don't want to drag you down with us, ladies.
Yeah, we don't want to do that.
I mean, I like the movies.
Oh, yeah, movies are great. I love the movies.
Yeah.
And that's sort of the wrestling, like the thing I wrestle with is I really enjoy the Conjuring films, but I think Ed and Lorraine Warren should have been shot out of a cannon, and I think they should salt the earth where they're buried so nothing grows. So it's like, it's a toss-up.
Talk about a business model.
He's always sitting on the fence, Brennan.
Yeah, what can I say? Yeah, I don't like to judge, Me and Jesus, we play close to our vest. Yeah. All right. Well, again, we could keep you ladies here for all afternoon chatting, but we should start to take it in for a landing. when is when can we expect season 2 of Spirits Uncorked?
I think that you can expect it definitely by June, possibly in May if we can get it together. Erica, let's get it together. But we'll start tours. We take a break from tours in the winter months, so we're going to start those again in June. So you can be on the lookout, linearghosttours.com. And then all of our social medias for the ghost tours and for the podcast is also at Lanier Ghost Tours. So TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, all of that is where you can find all of our content. And I hope you check it out. I hope you check out Spirits Uncorked, our podcast. We enjoyed doing the whole first season on Lake Lanier. And this second season, we're opening it up to a bunch of other topics. So it's a lot of fun. You have to drink wine while you listen. So,
Join the party.
Absolutely. Get your box of wine and your mug ready.
Exactly. But you can also bring wine on the ghost tour. And like I said, the ghost tours, we do them as genuinely, historical and accurate as possible, as safe as possible. And we do all things with, respect for everything, and we take it very, very seriously. So hope you can join us on a ghost tour sometime too.
Yeah.
Well, again, it has been so much fun hanging out with you guys. Thank you again for being here. Our guests have been Erica and Elizabeth, hosts of the Spirits Uncorked podcast. Again, you'll find links to Spirits Uncorked in the show notes, as well as links to Lanier Ghost Tours. Thank you both so much for hanging out with us today.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Welcome back. Thanks again to Erica and Elizabeth from Spirits Uncorked for hanging out with us. Paul, that was a really great conversation.
Brilliant. So interesting. And it was, it's just a very interesting situation on Lake Lanier and everything around it. So it seems to be more mysteries than you can shake a stick out there.
You're not kidding. And my friend, speaking of mysteries, help us solve the mystery of where our listeners can find you online.
You can find me as Mysteries and Monsters across all podcast sites and most social media platforms.
Fabulous. I'm Largely the Truth on Threads, Instagram, Blue Sky, and Letterboxd. And you can find my horror fiction show, Fear Daily, everywhere fine podcasts live. And of course, it would not be an episode of Talk Spooky without a tune. And as I mentioned at the top, we are again featuring a new track from our friend Vampire Stepdad. That track is from his upcoming album, Night Shift 2, Canine Cop. The track is In Pursuit. Again, you'll find that at vampirestepdad.com, and you'll also find all his other music there, as well as on streaming platforms everywhere. And folks, again, I can't overstate how much I like Vampire Stepdad's music. I am such a fan of this stuff. He's one of the few synthwave artists still making music from that sort of late synthwave revival, 2017-ish, who's still just killing it every time. Not only is it nostalgic, but there's a lot of heart there too. And so, huge fan of Vampire Stepdad.
As the kids say here, banging.
Yes, what Paul said. And of course, if you are an independent musician and you have a song you would like us to share on the spot, we are now booking slots for, I want to say late April, early May. I've got 2 more artists lined up, a couple past guests actually. We've got our friend Greco Ray coming up again, and Tracy Barnett, who was one of our first musical guests. We'll be having a track on upcoming shows. But of course, again, if you are an independent musical artist and you would like to be played here on Talk Spooky, shoot us an email, ghoststoryguys@gmail.com, and we will do what we can to get you in the show. We'll be back next week with episode 210, and it'll actually be 210 this time, not me miscounting. Jesus.
It's a Mayan 210.
There we go. And the world will... No, I'm just kidding. That's happening anyways.
Let's not pour any more fuel on that fire.
No, you're not kidding. Anyways, we will see you next week for episode 210. And of course, until then, we will leave you with Vampire Stepdad and In Pursuit. Thanks, as always, for listening, folks. We cannot tell you how much we appreciate it. Take care until next time.